Welcome to the Junk Drawer Mamas with your hosts Deena and Christina Queen. We are so glad you're here with us as we sort through the drama and the trauma of life's hidden struggles to uncover hope and healing with a side of humor on this roller coaster ride we like to call extreme parenting. Whether you're raising a child or a teen with special needs, dealing with challenging behaviors, tackling addiction, mental health issues, or working through the trauma associated with foster care, it's a lot, and we get it. But you don't have to do this alone. So grab a cozy chair, settle in, and let's take this journey together.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Junk Drawer Mamas podcast. I am here with my co-host Christina. We are on episode 14. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So last time we got together, we were talking about extreme behaviors and extreme parenting, what that was. We were breaking that down. And we felt like this really needed a part 2, digging into that junk drawer. This is a tough one for us too. I feel like we're always walking through what we're sharing with you. That's kind of how God has it. Like we're walking through the same thing that we're sharing with you. And I think that's maybe why he wanted us to do this podcast, because it's very healing for us too. But anyway, we're going to be talking about how do you handle unsolicited advice as a special needs parent? Because I would say the majority of people that are walking through an extreme situation or a special needs situation, not everybody, but at least Christine and I can relate to extreme behavior issues. My daughter has extreme behavior issues. And so I was saying this before we started recording. I've got 5 children, and my oldest daughter, I don't know if she's listening, but she was definitely a tough one when she was younger. So I've got bookends. My 2 girls, the older one and the younger one, were the most extreme. My boys in the middle, they weren't the extreme ones. It was the girls that were the behavior issues. So anyway, I do have some experience with that. But Christina has a lot of experience in her 30 years of fostering and working with kids that have been in extreme traumatic situations and healing from that. And as we know, if trauma isn't healed, that can be manifested as behavior issues. Yeah. So you have walked through a lot of different extreme situations. And I know even in the foster care system where maybe you haven't done this, but I do know of couples that have sent the child back into the system again because they could not manage their behavior, which breaks my heart, because then that kid just will never get the love of a family that they need if they're constantly being pushed around.
They bounce around. Yeah. They end up bouncing around.
To that real quick, and then we can, talk.
To that, when kids get moved around like that, it does. They tell us in the, in our training classes that it's just kind of like another little nick put in there, that the kids just think that there's something wrong with them. And quite honestly, as much as we hate to admit it, yes, these kids have got behaviors, but a lot of it stems from the adults in their lives.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of that times that's us, and it's how we're reacting to them. And, we've said it before, but I'll say it again because I need this reminder. If we are not being Christ-like when we're dealing with our kids, then we need to step back and look at that. How does Jesus handle us when we're out of line, when we're being disobedient, when we're not doing what we know that we're supposed to do?
Yeah.
We expect grace. We don't expect to, get beat up and stuff, but then a lot of times we're not giving the same grace to our kids. So we've got to be very mindful of that. But yes, the extreme behaviors.
Wait, before you say that, there's 2 things that you just said. We do a little bit of a planning meeting before we do the recording, and then we'd say, this is what we know our intentions are. But then there's always such good wisdom that comes up. So you said a couple things there. You said that if we are not parenting the way Jesus would parent us, how is Jesus, or our Father God, how has he handled us? Because we are supposed to model that. And, we would not want God talking to us, or think about, you're not very proud moments as a mom. Would we respond if God was talking to us that way? But talking about the kids where there's just one more tick, you'll get to the point where you're like, why should I bother behaving? Because I'm just going to get moved out of this house anyway. I don't even think they really want to be that way at all, but they just get to the point where they're almost doing it to see if they will be rejected. There's a spirit of rejection that comes in. The orphan spirit comes in when you have a child that has been removed from a home or abandoned, whatever that might be.
Well, honestly, it's not only, even our biological kids, it's the same, when we're parenting, which most of us are parenting with trauma in our background to some extent. Maybe some is not as bad as maybe you had a parent that just yelled all the time. It creates trauma. And so if we're parenting our kids out of trauma and then expecting them not to be traumatized, That's not even fair. So we've got to be very mindful of that. And a lot of times we're not. We're as moms, we wear a lot of hats. We all know that, and especially special needs moms or moms that are in the extreme situations, maybe kids that are medically fragile, addictions, whatever you're dealing with.
Right.
It's a lot. And so a lot of times we parent out of exhaustion. And wherever we're at, I mean, we're just tired. And let's face it, when we're tired, we're not so quick to smile and be like, oh, okay, honey, don't do that. We're more like, I said stop. That is enough. I'm not dealing with it anymore. I'm done. And because we're over our day and the way our day's gone, then that spills over onto the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because me and my husband's talked about it. I'm like, man, I'm fine at the beginning part of the day. I feel like I've got this. I can do this. And it just kind of keeps getting,
go team.
we just kind of keep going up and up. Yes. And then by the time it starts getting like
flag, like I
5
can't
or
do
6
this.
o'clock, I'm like, I am done.
Yeah.
And I'm counting down the minutes till bedtime. I'm like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And the more exhausted you get, the more tired, then the shorter your patience is.
Yeah.
The less fruit of the spirit we operate in.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got to be very mindful and very intentional to try to be like, okay, this is not about me. This is not about my emotions or me being tired.
Mm-hmm.
I still need to handle the situation right.
Yes.
And I definitely
So that's
am
really
not
what
there
we
yet.
want to talk about before we get
Right.
into how do you handle unsolicited advice. But I have to tell you a funny story. So I happened to see a video on, I don't know if it was Facebook or whatever, but somebody was posting a reel of this baby smacking the mom. And her reaction was like, oh, that hurt. Don't do that. And so instantly the video goes to this therapist about how do we parent and not give the baby a reaction. I immediately went to the comments like everybody else. Like, what are the other parents saying? Because she was saying like, don't react, maintain a calm face, and we're saying we don't do that. And I was like, I'd be saying, no, we don't hit. So anyway, it was funny because all the other moms that are in the comments were saying that. How about saying no? How about putting the baby down? Because there's, all this like calm parenting strategies now. And I wasn't raised in a generation of calm parenting.
Right. Same.
I think, although my dad didn't necessarily take out the belt, he would threaten us with that when we were younger. But I'm sure my generation or even the generation before us, that's how they handled it. And I'm not saying that is what we are promoting. I do not promote that at all. Yeah. Just let me clear that up. But there is a generation that remembers that we were just told, no, that's bad. We don't do this. Or there was a physical punishment. But now we've got all this like passive parenting. So you got a baby that's smacking you or a toddler that's smacking you. You're trying to be calm with them so you don't get a reaction.
Exactly. And I think that there's a healthy in between.
That would work with Gracie.
No,
honestly,
there's definitely a healthy in between of the way things are done now and the way things were done then, because it was very severe then and it's very like, oh, whatever.
Right.
And so we're seeing kids that are so out of control.
A happy medium
right.
in there.
And we were so afraid to do anything because, out of fear. And then the kids now have no fear of anything and they just do whatever they want to do in any place. And there's no restrictions now a lot of times. Yeah. So there is a happy in
There's
between,
no restrictions. And I believe that we are in a state in our world where we've never seen this kind of stress and exhaustion from parents that they literally have stopped parenting. And the kids are the ones that are raising themselves. I saw this a lot. And that was, it's been 7 years since we did our outreach. So even 7 years ago, at that time, I was seeing it. A lot of the teens that we were dealing with, their parents just didn't parent at all because they couldn't handle dealing with the stress. So when we talk about extreme parenting, not every family is going to go through even seasons of anything extreme. But when you are dealing with behavior issues, you're dealing with foster care or trauma, you're dealing with, even medical fragile children, they're not necessarily behaviorally challenged, but that mom can still be utterly exhausted from constant care.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Especially if she's got other children or she's married or she's got whatever. So you're parenting from a place of fight, flight, or freeze. That's honestly or fawn. Right. So fawn is the fourth step where you just give up. You're kind of like, I'm numb. I can't do anything.
Right.
And so I want people to understand that what we're talking about is the parents that have those extreme situations where that is our life on a day-to-day basis. That's what this channel really is designed to raise awareness for. Anyway, so go ahead.
And a lot of us don't realize, other people's situations, because if it's not a situation that's in your home, you don't realize how extreme it is.
Yes.
And 20 years of fostering, 30 years of parenting, me and my husband had never taken medically fragile children that's considered medically fragile until we got Izzy. And, we wanted to adopt a little one with Down syndrome for years. We were registered with the National Down Syndrome Adoption Network because we wanted to adopt a little one with Down syndrome. So when we got the call for Izzy at 2 months old, we were like ecstatic. We were like, yes, yes, yes. Well, she has, a feeding tube. And we didn't have experience with the medical stuff like this, but I was like, I don't care. We'll learn it. We'll figure it out. And you do, as a mom, you know the things that you didn't know what to do until you had Gracie, and you're like, well, I'm going to learn this now. I'm going to figure this out. This is just what we do. But you don't realize the amount of stress. So Izzy doesn't have like crazy high medical needs. She does have a feeding tube, so it's more than, a traditional child, so to speak. But we were trying to relax after a long, stressful day a couple nights ago, and she was in her little feeding chair. She has a feeding chair, and she was in her feeding chair, and I was just finally relaxing from the night, hot bubble bath, and got out, and I was like, finally, no more stress, got kind of, soaked it all away. And then I look out to see Izzy standing up in front of her seat. She had somehow figured out how to get out of her chair because she heard her machine beep, and we were literally right there. So it's not like we left her in the room by herself, so don't anybody freak out. Our door was right there. She's in our bedroom. But I see her standing up and like pulling that tube. I mean, like she ripped her tube right on out.
Oh my goodness.
And of course, I'm like, we've only had a couple times that we've even experienced this. And so
I was on the phone with you one time when that happened.
Yes, that was actually the first time.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Hold on a second.
Because when you're trying to get it in fast, I'm concerned about her. I don't want to hurt her. I don't want it to be painful for her. So anyways, she rips this out and she's crying, and I'm like, babe, hurry, get in here. We got to, put her tube back in. And so, we get it all in and everything, but I went to lay back down. We got everything all settled, and the tension,
your adrenaline was rushing high.
Yes. I was like, okay, all that de-stressing that I just did, I was so tense when I went to lay down.
You were in fight
and
mode.
We don't
flight or freeze. You were in fight
and I'm
mode.
like, I'm telling my husband, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tense. I'm so stressed out. And it wasn't like anything super, but I cannot imagine the moms that are, doing trachs and like the super high needs. We don't understand if we're not doing it. I would have never even thought that was that stressful. Okay, so the feeding tube. Oh yeah, I don't know about that. But every mom is in a different situation, and it might be, you were telling me some stuff about Gracie, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, poor Deena. And we, just some of the stuff that you're dealing with, I don't have to deal with that. And I wouldn't know that is your life. And that's some of the things that you go through. And I'm over here thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do that.
So even with Down syndrome, most of what I see online, and again, I'm sure people don't want to post everything negative. I don't know if people even want to see that kind of stuff. And I will be building my Life with Gracie channel because I just think that people need to see life the way it really is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And she likes to be filmed and she likes to show her life. But it's always depicted like this beautiful relationship, and they're so kind and sweet, and they are. She is absolutely one of the most loving human beings I've ever met. Tomorrow is going to be World Down Syndrome Day, and we're going to be celebrating her.
Yes.
Raising awareness for people with Down syndrome, and we advocate for them, for their rights to be seen and heard and to be included. You know what I'm saying? So you see that side of it. But I've had more behavior issues with her than all 5 of my kids put together. Oh, and so although she can be very kind and she fills you with love and cards and hugs and, I love you, Mom, you're my best friend. She says that 100 times a day. But I don't think I've ever dealt with another human being that is as strong-willed as her and is resistant to doing what she needs to do. And that puts me in that same state that you're dealing with the feeding tube. There are times that I'm dealing with something, especially when she gets into that place where I say we reached the point of no return, where she's just not going to comply. She'll usually drop to the floor. She's got a temper tantrum or whatever, or she just refuses. Your whole body is tense, especially if you're in public. If I'm at home, it's a lot easier. I can walk away from her. But if she's doing this in public or at a family function, everyone's watching you.
Right.
And then that brings in what our whole topic is today is about how do you deal with somebody saying, have you tried
Yes.
this? What would you do? And I want to say, you
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
what it's like. Take her
Right.
for a week and then give me the
Exactly.
same advice. Actually, you'd have to take her
Yep.
for 14 years to truly understand the
Right.
depth.
And we
of
are
what it has
just
been.
barely starting to see that side of
Yeah.
the Down syndrome world with Izzy. She has already at
She's
2.
strong-willed for just a 2-year-old.
She has been referred to a behavioral therapist already at 2 years old because like she'll be smacking at you and I'm not.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I'm not one of those moms that are like, "Oh, don't hit mommy." I'm like, "No. We're not doing that, or
Yeah.
you're going to be on a timeout." We handle that stuff. So it's not like I'm not that mom, but with Izzy, it's completely different. I feel like the whole house is like, because she does have that sweetness to her, and because everybody here knows
definitely
that
has a sweetness to her for sure.
She has the high, like level of special needs. Everybody is a lot softer with her and a lot more like, oh, it's okay. It's Izzy. She doesn't. Well, talking to her doctor, we know that she understands quite a bit. She's actually pretty high, functioning.
Mhm.
So now we're looking at behavioral stuff,
I don't
behavioral
know
help,
why that
because
makes
she's
me
like
laugh.
smacking the doctors, not letting them look in her ears. I mean, she is just having at it. And we're like,
so when
and she's
Gracie
only
was
2.
2, so she would have been 2, same as Izzy. She ended up contracting RSV and pneumonia, and her fever was really high. She was at a dangerous level, so we had to get her into the emergency room. It took 7 adults to hold this baby down and put her arm on a board so that they could strap her arm down so that they could put a IV in her. I mean, literally adults are all trying to hold down. She was the strength of Goliath, man. And my mom's heart is breaking and she's screaming. And for 4 days, this child screamed. To the point where I finally said, so this is an extreme situation too, from a medical standpoint. 4 days of no sleep, of her screaming. I'm finally like, is there anything you could do? Can you give her Valium? Like, we don't do that. Benadryl, anything. And so they warned me and they said, we can give her Benadryl, but there's always that chance where it won't work for her. There's a small percentage of kids that it does the opposite. Oh, of course, my kid, it would be the opposite. So they gave her Benadryl and all that did was make her more enraged. She was like somebody had given her adrenaline. And I'm like, now what do I do? Can you reverse it? Like I said, when does this wear off? They said 4 hours, like 4 hours. So she went from screaming to rageful. But what it was is they had strapped down her hand that she sucked her thumb with. It was actually my mom that said, what if we released her arm from the board? The minute we did, she put her thumb in her mouth and she was fine. So for 4 days, she was crying because she couldn't put her thumb in her mouth. But do you have any idea what that did to my nerves? 4 days of trying to hold your child that's screaming and screaming and the nurses and everybody can't do anything?
And see, that's what we dealt with our now 4-year-old, the one that we're in adoptions with right now. He had the tonsils and adenoids removed and tubes put in his ears all in one shot, at 3 years old here. This was right after we'd only had him for a couple months. So I'm still trying to figure out bonding with this little guy and not giving up, because the behaviors, I'm talking extreme. They were extreme. You didn't know what you're going to catch something upside the head, including a fist. I mean,
you throw stuff at the other kids,
Yeah. Poked one of our kiddos, our 11-year-old, in the eye on the way to church and made her eye bleed.
Oh my gosh.
Just, I'm talking extreme stuff. So we're in that where, you had surgery, you didn't feel good. And so he's in the crib bed in there in the hospital and he is screaming and screaming and screaming. And one thing I had learned with him is you try to calm him down. That's even worse.
Yeah.
He does not want you. He has got to calm down himself. There was something about it that he just needed to just keep coming down until he's there, because if you would give him stuff, he would just throw it at you. If you would try to, here, buddy, no, he's not having that. So the unsolicited advice, we're kind of rolling into that side of this. The nurses were coming in like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with this woman? She doesn't even care about this. I mean, I could see it all over them. Like, they're like, well, do you want us to give him? I'm like, you can do whatever you want to. But I'm telling you, he's got to calm down. He's got to kind of de-escalate himself. And I said, but go ahead. You can do what you want. And of course they thought I was just being a bad mom. And I didn't care. So they tried it. They gave him a cup that he threw at them. They gave him a tablet that he also threw at them.
Oh my gosh.
They gave him food that he threw and he screamed. They tried toys. And I'm like, Oh, do you want us to take him in the other? I said, you can do whatever you want. And of course, whatever they were trying did not work. And I'm just kind of sitting over there like, it's 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd been up for hours listening to him scream. I mean, scream. This kid, I've never seen a kid that could, and I'm sure the nurses were tired of it too. Trust me, I was exhausted and like, I don't know if I can live my life like this. I felt like I was going to be trapped.
There's many
in
moms that live that
forever.
way on a daily basis.
Right. And
Their
that's
kid
kind of what
cannot
I felt
manage
like.
their emotions. They can't self-regulate, or they're dealing with, whatever it is. A lot of autistic children are like that, and it's on a daily basis.
And it felt like it was going to be forever.
Depleted from dealing with that all the time.
And that's what I felt like. I came home we stayed up there for 2 nights like that. And I was like, oh, God, I can't do this. I can't do this. And he was placed with this as an adoptive placement. But I'm like, God, I don't think I can do this. This is hard. In 20 years of fostering, I had never met a kiddo quite like this little guy. And I mean, thank God that still small voice that I listened to the Holy Spirit and didn't just go off of my own emotions and how I was feeling and the state of overwhelm. I mean, I was literally in this state of overwhelm. Like, I cannot do this. Like, all these years, I've been a parent for 30 years, and this little 3-year-old is going to be the one that brings me down. This 3-year-old, he is it. I cannot, and, my husband just happened to have kind of the opposite. And now he's seen the extreme behaviors too, but he's just had such a way with him. And I feel like that was such a Holy Spirit thing because he can just go and talk to him and say, hey, buddy, and he'll calm him right down.
Yeah.
And so there's a real bond that there is there. And I have it too with him now, but I didn't think I was ever going to get past that just state of feeling overwhelmed. And that advice, everybody, oh, try this. Oh, here, let's do it. And the whole stay, the nurses were coming in. Here, do you want me to take him for a walk? Hey, and I just felt like, because they think
Did you feel like
I don't know what I'm
wouldn't
doing.
Listen to you? And they wouldn't take your advice as the mom?
Yes.
Or even,
I felt like
I know he's
they
new
thought I was
to
a bad
you,
mom.
but you have 30 years of experience.
Yeah.
And so that's frustrating right there that they assume that they know something better.
Tired. I was also tired and overwhelmed. So I very much recognize now, being out of that situation, that I was also, because I was in that state of overwhelm and tired and exhaustion, there was definitely a spirit of offense at play in there. And I was just offended with every
That's really good that you
time
recognize
somebody would
that.
say to me, oh, do you want me to try this? I just felt like they were saying, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing with this kid. Let me do it because I'm going to do it better.
Yes.
That's what I was hearing. That's not what they were saying. They were probably genuinely trying to help. Some of them may have been judging and being like, this woman doesn't care or doesn't know what she's doing. But I do believe that for the most part, they probably was just genuinely, as nurses, they're nurturers, they're caregivers. They were trying to help and calm it down. But I was just hearing, you don't know what you're doing. That's what I heard because I was tired and I was exhausted. And so we do have to be very mindful of that when we're getting advice, like, when you're in a public place and somebody's like, oh my gosh, if my kid was doing that, or you should do this with them. Chances are, if their behavior is bad enough that it's attracting other people's attention, you're already tired.
Yeah.
You're already overwhelmed. You're already stressed out, and you don't want to hear anybody else's advice. So we do need to be mindful, not to be rude or unchristlike with that person, but see it in the spirit that is coming. And I mean, some people can just be mean or cruel, but I think most of the time people are just trying to help us because they can see that we're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They can see that we're stressed out. And they're just trying to help. They're just trying to genuinely
There's
give
a
us
couple
some
things
kind of
that
help.
you said there that I want to touch on, because we're now starting to get into the whole, what do you do with unsolicited advice? So we were starting out talking about some extreme behaviors, giving you guys examples of what extreme behaviors are. But there's a couple of things that you said. Number one, you said there was a spirit of offense. So I want to kind of table that for a minute and go back to that. But you said something about the Holy Spirit. So if you were not partnering, and both Christina and I believe that this is just us. Again, you can believe whatever you want to believe. We don't have worldly advice for you because it doesn't work for us. We tell you what works for us. And so this job of being an extreme parent takes partnering with God, because if you were not partnering with God and you were not being sensitive to the Holy Spirit's leading, would you have yelled at those nurses and given them an earful?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm
it's
sure I
you were
would've.
able to maintain, even though you were stressed and exhausted, you were able to maintain that. So that's really what we want to leave with you, as we break this down a little bit more, is that how do you actually handle extreme behaviors, and do you navigate when somebody is coming up to you trying to tell you what you do? Because if there is a spirit of offense that comes up, and that actually is a spirit, and you don't know how to take authority over that, or you don't know how to renew your mind over that, then it is going to get the best of you.
Yeah.
Because the enemy does not want us to win as parents. He does not want our children to
Right.
thrive. And many of these kids have come through very traumatic experiences already. And so the enemy's already has a foothold. And so we as parents have to make sure that we are mentally, physically, and spiritually strong to be able to do
Right.
this. So ultimately, how do you handle unsolicited advice? You've got to make sure that you are running on all cylinders. And we'll
Right.
break that down a
Well,
little
and
bit more.
because part of what's happening there is that if we do let that spirit of offense kind of rear its ugly head there and come in, or pride come in,
Pride.
any of
Absolutely.
these
That's another
spirits
one.
come in,
That's another one.
then is all we're doing is letting, what we're hearing is, you don't know, you're not a good mom.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, it breaks it down to that you're not a good mom. You're not doing this right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're hearing over and over again when somebody
That's
else
how
is
we're
going to try to
interpreting
tell
it. But that's
us,
the enemy
right,
speaking through that
exactly,
situation.
exactly. And so we're hearing that you don't know what you're doing. You're not a good mom. You're not. And a lot of times we're already feeling like that
Yeah.
when we're so overwhelmed because our kids won't listen to us, or
Trust me,
having
anyone
whatever
listening, if
behavior.
your kid is having a full-on temper tantrum or meltdown in a store, we definitely are embarrassed. We definitely feel
Yes.
like everyone's
Yeah.
watching us. Even if you are a strong person, even if you are taking
Yeah.
care of yourself, it still is
Yeah.
very embarrassing.
It
You
is.
know what I mean?
It is.
Because it does draw attention, and it's not positive attention.
Because you look like a person that don't know how to parent. You look like
Mhm.
a person that don't know what you're doing, even if you've had 30 or 50 years to it doesn't matter how many years and
Mhm.
how many kids you've parented. Every child is different, and you, depending on who has something to say, you might get a kind person, person that just kind of tries to come over and talk to you and say, hey, is there any way I can help you? Or you might get that judgy
Mhm.
person, lady over there, like, oh my gosh, you need to deal with this kid. This is ridiculous. You're letting them disrupt the whole story. Don't you know what you're doing?
And a lot of times the
But
enemy
the
will
thing
even use
is,
that situation. Not only does he plant
right,
lies that says you're not a good mom, but he will use that situation for you to start looking at it in a negative
right,
way. Maybe people aren't looking at it that way, but you're starting to view it
right.
through the lens of these people think I'm an idiot, or they
Yes,
think that I'm not a good
yes.
mom.
And they might
And
not
then
be
you
thinking
start
it at
getting
all.
very stressed, and how do I
Yeah,
handle this? Because at home, it would be different. If you're at home,
right.
you
Oh,
handle it
yeah.
differently, whether you're doing it right or not. You do
Right.
handle it differently than when you're out in public, which is where you're
Yes.
probably going to get the advice from.
Right.
Is when you're at a
Right.
family
Absolutely.
function, family members, grandparents, or, friends, church, whatever. Those are the places that you're going to get
Yeah.
people that are, for the most part, have good intentions, but they're
Right.
looking at it like, I can help you because you're
Mhm.
taking it like, I can help you because you're not doing it well enough. That's
Right.
the enemy. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
Once in a while, you'll get a mom like, girl, I get it. I know. Sometimes I'm in a store and Gracie's just sitting down for the 100th time in the store and they're laughing like, I get it. I got one like that at home.
Yeah.
Like, I
And
found my
we can
people.
kind of feel, we can kind of feel the tone and when somebody's telling us, but if we're not careful, even when somebody's telling us something in love or something to be helpful, if we are already in a bad attitude, already have a bad attitude and in
Yeah.
a bad mood and stressed out, we can definitely um, snap back in a way that is not representing Christ the way that we need to. And it doesn't matter. The Bible doesn't tell us to, be a good representation of Christ only when we feel good and we're not stressed out. We're supposed to do that at all times. And honestly, when we can do it in times like that, it's even more of a testament to who he is in our lives. When we can stay peaceful and calm and not get rude or nasty with a store clerk that's telling us how to parent our child.
Right.
If we can just keep a really good
And
attitude,
we're going to
that's
have
a
to
way
ask
better
you to
witness.
leave aisle 6, clean up on aisle 6 in the frozen peas.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know exactly what you're
Yeah.
saying. Okay.
And
So
we're not there yet.
No,
We're still practicing what we're telling you.
Yeah.
We're still working this one out.
yes,
For sure.
absolutely. We are on the court right now working this out.
Right.
So my husband and I were having this conversation about this episode that we were going to be recording. I was telling him that we were going to be talking about how do we handle unsolicited parenting advice. And he said to me, it has to do with the mom. It's going to like, I felt like he was saying it's the mom's fault. And so at first I was kind of like, what do you mean by that? But what he said was brilliant. What he did say was brilliant. He said that it's the condition of the mom, like the mom's health. So he said, if you were going to be going on a trip, let's say, because I live in Michigan. So, if I were going to be going to California, that's a long journey. And if I were going to be driving, that's a few day journey to go to California. I would want to make sure that my car was maintained, and I would make sure that it had oil change, that all the fluids were running, that, it got a tune up, and that
tip-top shape.
Tip-top shape. I'm not going to take an old jalopy that's barely running and get it to California safely. So it's the same thing with our mental health, our physical health, and our spiritual health. Even our sleep and all of that is all going to play into whether you can handle an offense. So for me, the very biggest thing that's ever helped me is my spiritual health. Now, obviously, I do my best to try to handle my physical health and sleep. I used to pride myself on being, I could live on 2 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, and I was not. I was running on fumes. I was not nice to be around. But I didn't see that. That was kind of a blind spot for me. So now I treat sleep like it's a therapy appointment. We wouldn't miss our kids' therapy appointments. Christina has therapy appointments all week for all her kids. So she has a calendar and they're scheduled on there and she shows up on time. Well, that's the same way we've got to make our own personal self-care and sleep as if it's a therapy appointment, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to be healed in that area. So you have to be the one that takes the responsibility to make sure that you are running on all cylinders, that your car, your vehicle, your body, your mind, your spirit is functioning, and it is an ongoing thing. You can't just put oil in your car once and then it's good forever. No, you have to keep maintaining it. You have to keep making sure the tire pressure is good. So it's the same thing with our body and our mental state and all that. We were just talking about lies from the enemy. You think he's going to stop just because you finally figured out that was a lie? And you may be able to overcome a spirit of offense? No, he's going to try another scheme and another strategy, another thing to get you off of your game. So you're going to have to continue, as Christina has said many times on these episodes, be intentional. It is about being intentional every single day. You cannot let your guard down. You have got to be able to be strong in these battles. And I'm not saying that all our journey as a mom is a battle. It's not. There's so much of it that is just joy-filled and fun. And I love all my kids. I've got 5 kids and they all have unique personalities and we thoroughly enjoy spending time with them. But it's the rough times, if you're not prepared for, could take you out. And that's really what we try to share on these podcasts so that you understand, like, what did we do? How did, if there's anything that we've done to help you, if anything we've done in our journey that could help you manage that. So the biggest thing that I could say, and I'm sure Christina will give her advice as well, or wisdom, I would say wisdom, is that if you are not partnering with God and you are not making sure that your spiritual health is strong, then that spirit of offense, when somebody comes in to try to give you unsolicited advice, is going to come up. It is going to cause you, again, your adrenaline's going to rush. You're going to feel defensive. You're going to want to fight back. You're going to start feeling those lies come in that you're not a good mom and all of that. The other thing too, is that I think it's very important to do our best to try to understand maybe from that other person's perspective before we just give advice. And if you can't understand that, then just ask permission. Do you mind if I share something that might help? So many times we're quick to just say, hey, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And I'm like, I've tried everything. I've tried everything you could possibly imagine. You think I haven't? Don't assume I haven't. It's kind of the same thing with weight. It's like when you're on a diet. Have you tried this? Have you tried that?
Yes.
I've been overweight most of my life. Yes, I've tried every single thing I could possibly imagine.
Yes, everything.
So you just assume that I don't know because I'm overweight, that I don't know anything about nutrition. I would say people that are overweight probably know more about nutrition and exercise and health than any other person. So it's the same thing with parenting. If you've parented an extreme child, you probably know more than the average parent does. We have to help other people understand. We can't just expect everybody else to know. Most people can't carry the weight of what it is that we're doing. So I don't think we should just put that on everybody. So we do have to be, mindful of that. And we've talked about that together as well. But if you're one of those people that thinks you have something that could offer, you probably could offer us advice. Just ask. Just say, do you mind if it's okay if I share this with you? It might help. So maybe that nurse saying, maybe we could try this, and you saying, I don't know, maybe you can, let's try it, versus like, what's the matter with you? Why is this kid out of control? So anyway, that's just my advice on that. Make sure that you're spiritually, physically, and mentally, emotionally strong. You'll find that probably rolls off your back like water on a duck's back, as they say, more than not if you are taking care of your own vehicle as the mom. And then just try to understand that most people are bringing that from a good perspective. They're really not trying to be mean or rude. A lot of times it's our own offense that gets in the way and we think they're trying to be rude, but they're not. They really are.
Or our own pride.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, who are you to tell me
most
how to
people
raise
have good
kids? Do you know how many
intentions. They
kids
really
I've
do.
had?
Right.
Do you know what kind of behaviors? Do you know, like you automatically think, well, you probably just got 2 kids that are just regular, no behavioral issues. You know, we definitely
we can judge other people too.
Yes.
They don't know anything because they only have 1 kid or 2 kids. You've had 17 kids that you've had in your house at one time. No, like we could think that other people wouldn't understand, but Yep.
We need to definitely be careful for that, because a lot of times it can simply be pride. Like, who do you think you are?
Yes.
I would say most of the time it is pride. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Is pride.
And honestly, if something's not happening, maybe they do have, maybe we should look at it like, please tell me something that's going to work.
That's it.
Please give me that little magic, whatever.
Where have you been all my life with this life-saving information?
Yes, maybe we should be super excited to hear what they've got to say, so that
but would really take us being
thing.
in a place of receiving.
Right.
We have to be willing as moms that are going through these extreme situations to allow people to contribute to our life, because we feel like we're in this protection mode. Have you ever felt that way? Like your kids are out of control, whatever, but there's still this mama bear. Like, I'm going to protect them. Like, I want to say bad things about my kid, but don't you dare say my kid's acted up. So then you start to get into this protection mode, and we are not in a place of receiving. Nobody can give us any information because we feel like they don't have any right to speak into our life because they don't know.
Yeah.
So we also have to work on our own hearts and allow God to bring people. You never know. Maybe God brought that person into your life, or that nurse or that cashier to give you that advice. Yeah. Or just encourage you that, also you can just say, I'm very proud of you, or you're doing a great job. There's nothing wrong with telling a mom who's got a kid that had a meltdown, you're doing a good job, Mom. And instead of trying to give the advice to try to stop the kid from doing whatever behavior. Because we also don't know whether the kid is dealing with trauma. Is the kid dealing with, maybe they didn't sleep that night. Maybe they're having a medication reation. Maybe they're a foster kiddo, and
maybe they're a foster kiddo, and they've known this person for less than 24 hours, who's trying to parent them and trying to be the mom, and they're just scared and they want their mom back. They want their people. They don't know anybody that's around them.
We just don't know.
We need to give grace. We need to give grace.
So good. So good. Well, we are at the end of our episode, and so this has been so good. I feel like, again, every time we get to this point in it, that we could just keep on talking, and, so I hope that we gave you good biblical advice, good biblical truths, and even practical strategies, like making sure you make sleep, like a therapy appointment, managing our own emotions, making sure that we're in a receiving place to receive from other people. And those that are just rude, oh, well. There's going to be people like that. That doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to rule you. It doesn't have to do anything. It doesn't have to disrupt your day. It doesn't have
to torment you either. You don't have to let the devil mess up your whole day over that.
Yeah.
You can
it could
just
literally
let
be
it roll
maybe
off.
God put that person in your life so that you could pray for them, because maybe they are the ones who are lacking peace. Maybe they're in a fight, flight, freeze because of something that's going on in their life. So you never know. We just do not know what people are going through. So we all need to be kind, and we all need to ask permission to speak into people's lives and that kind of thing. So we hope that this encouraged you, and we will continue to keep probably bringing this up, because it is really the premise behind why we decided to do this podcast was extreme parenting, what that actually is. And it's about digging into that drawer as the mom, so that we can find those things that we're afraid or ashamed to talk about. It's not fun to talk about the fact that you can't get your kid under control. You know what I mean? Or that maybe you're walking in a spirit of pride or whatever.
Or that you're being assaulted by a 3-year-old.
Right. So we dig through all this stuff, and we share and expose our stuff. So it gives you the freedom, to know that you're not alone, and that you can actually walk through those things too. So anyway, we thank you. We love you. We are so honored that you took the time. If you're still listening and you got to the end of this, we thank you, and we honor you for sticking through this journey with us. And we just can't wait to see you guys again on another episode of the Junk Drawer Mamas. Have an awesome week. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us and listening to the Junk Drawer Mamas podcast. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with a mom who could use a little extra love and support. We'd love to hear from you too. Leave us a review and let us know what you think, or send us your ideas for what you want us to tackle in the junk drawer. You can email us anytime at junkdrawermamas@gmail.com. Stay connected with us on social media. Follow Deena at Specially Empowered Moms and Christina at Faith Through Foster Care for more encouragement and updates on our upcoming books. From two mamas in the throes of extreme parenting, we want you to know that you're doing a great job, mama, and you don't have to have it all together. But what's hidden can't be healed, so let's keep sorting through it together, one step, one story, and one laugh at a time. See you next time when we tackle another item in the junk drawer of life. Have an awesome week.